The wartime responsibility of a military goes beyond fighting enemy forces. During the Korean War, UN forces led by the United States undertook several ambitious military operations. The surprise amphibious landing at Incheon in September 1950, which turned the tide of the war, is the most famous one. The evacuation of Hungnam in December 1950 is less well known, but deserves to be remembered as a major achievement of the UN forces, not because of its tactical or strategic achievements on the battlefield, but because of the number of lives the operation saved. In a war during which the civilian population of Korea was devastated, the rescue of 100,000 civilians trapped in the port of Hungnam stands out as a bright moment. This evacuation left a lasting legacy in Korea and is a benchmark for future militaries engaged in conflict zones regarding their responsibility to provide humanitarian assistance. So what exactly was the event that many will go on to call the miracle of Christmas? After liberating Seoul in September 1950, UN forces pushed north of the 38th parallel. Fearing that the UN forces led by the United States would attack China, leader of People's Republic of China, Mao Zedong, unofficially entered the war. He deployed Chinese troops to help the retreating North Korean army. Surprised by the sudden attack from China, the UN forces were forced into a retreat. By December 1950, a large contingent of soldiers were cornered into the port city of Hungnam. Luckily, the US Navy was nearby to rescue the trapped troops and take them to safety. But the rescue operation took a complex turn.
As the operation takes place, more and more of the refugees start flooding down into Hungnam, and we have guards and we have roadblocks everywhere trying to keep the refugees from coming in, because this is a military operation. We can't have refugees running around where all the tanks are and all the equipment. There's no place for them. But they keep coming.
The UN forces were unwilling to leave behind these civilians because they would not only be caught in the crossfire, but also would face potential retribution at the hands of the North Korean army for attempting to flee with the enemy. Ultimately, the UN forces under the command of US General Edward ALMOND and US Admiral James DOYLE decided to evacuate as many refugees with the army as possible.
So that was the trick, is how do you get all these people in a systematic way on these ships with pressure from the Chinese? And you have to do it by the D-Day was December 24th, because at 2 p.m. they were scheduled to blow the entire port. By the 22nd of December, about 30,000 refugees had already been rescued. And Admiral Doyle somehow got 3 merchant marine ships in there. They're called Victory ships, huge ships. And the Meredith Victory is the most famous one.
On the final day of evacuation, Christmas Eve 1950, the US Navy and the Merchant Marines carried 100,000 people to safety. The Meredith Victory alone carried 14,000 refugees out of Hungnam. It still holds Guinness record for the largest evacuation from land by a single ship. People estimate that there are today over 1 million descendants of survivors from the Hungnam evacuation. This includes South Korea's 19th President Moon Jae-in, whose parents were passengers on the Meredith Victory. So what can we learn from this event? First, armies do more than fighting hostile combatants. It is their responsibility to ensure innocent people are kept safe. Second, it is a reminder that wars have devastating human consequences, and that they leave lasting scars on a community. The 100,000 refugees who were rescued by the UN convoy escaped the immediate ravages of war, but also left behind family members and friends.
Because most of them thought they were leaving for maybe 3 days, or 3 weeks, or maybe 3 months, but not forever. And many of them never heard from their families again, never got a letter, no phone calls, nothing. You have no idea.
Looking back on the Korean War, we should not forget the effects of the war are still with us today in the form of divided families.